Now welcome to the next video which will have the question answers related to the topic respiration. So let's view the first question in text NCERT questions. The first question is, what advantage over an aquatic organism does a terrestrial organism have with regard to the oxygen for the respiration, with regard to obtaining the oxygen for respiration? During the lecture part, I have already discussed with you that aquatic organisms, they have to take the dissolved oxygen from the water, and the amount of dissolved oxygen is very less in the water. Okay, so for that they have to respire rapidly, they have to increase their breathing rate. But on the other hand, if we talk about the terrestrial animals, they take up the oxygen directly from the air, and we know that amount of oxygen in the air is quite high as compared to the aquatic animals. So in the terrestrial animals, the rate of respiration is quite low. Okay, so they don't have to work very hard to obtain the oxygen, but aquatic animals, they have to breathe very fast. So the value is given: a fish will breathe 100 times per minute, and a human being normally he breathes 14 to 20 times per minute. So you can see there is a huge difference between these two values. Okay, now come to the next question. What are the different ways in which glucose is oxidized to provide the energy in the various organism? यहाँ पर बच्चे वो फ्लो चार्ट आएगा जहाँ पर हमने ग्लूकोज का breakdown पढ़ा है. So we have done the glucose breakdown by 3 methods: in the presence of oxygen, in the lack of oxygen, and in the absence of oxygen. Okay, to summarize these process, in the presence of oxygen, glucose, firstly in all these 3 methods, glucose is converted into the pyruvic acid. Okay, that takes place in the cytoplasm. That process is called as, what is that process called as? Glycolysis or EMP pathway. Now further, that pyruvate, it undergoes the 3 methods, that is in the presence of oxygen, in the lack of oxygen, and in the absence of oxygen, the pyruvic acid is broken down. So in the presence of oxygen, the pyruvic acid, it is broken down into the carbon dioxide, water, and 38 ATP in the form of energy. Okay, it is quite high amount of energy as compared to the other methods. So when we talk about, and this aerobic respiration, it occurs in mitochondria. Okay, so next comes the lack of oxygen. This kind of respiration, it takes place in the muscles. Whenever we perform the heavy hard work or we perform any heavy exercise, what happens? The pyruvic acid, it get converted into the lactic acid along with the production of very less amount of energy, that is in the 2 ATP form. Okay, so this kind of lack of oxygen, it takes place in muscles, and due to the accumulation of lactic acid, we feel the pain in the skeletal muscles after the heavy exercise. Now come to the third method, that is the, in absence of the oxygen, how the respiration occurs, how the pyruvic acid, it breaks down. So the pyruvic acid, in the absence of oxygen, it breaks down in the ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide, and again energy. Energy over here is again very less, that is 2 ATP. Okay, so these are the 3 methods by which glucose is broken down. Now we come to the another question, that is, how is oxygen and carbon dioxide transported in the human beings? It is again important part. I have already discussed with you that oxygen, it bind with the molecule of hemoglobin. It bind with the molecule of hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. So maximum part, that is how much? round about 97% of oxygen is transported by this method. The rest of 3% it is transported in the dissolved form in the blood plasma. Okay, so oxygen it undergoes the two mechanisms for the transport. One is via hemoglobin and second is via dissolved form in the blood plasma. Now we talk about the transport of the carbon dioxide. We have already discussed the first mechanism, that now instead of oxygen, carbon dioxide can also bind with the hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide can also bind with the hemoglobin, and this form the molecule called as carbaminohemoglobin. Okay, so 23% of carbon dioxide is transported via the hemoglobin. Now maximum amount, that is 70% of the carbon dioxide, it is transported in the form of the carbonate ion. It is transported in the form of the which kind of ion? It is very important part. It is in the form of the which kind of ion? I have told you, that is the hydrogen carbonate ion, and this transport